It's important to remember that the allegations against Watson now are for basically indecent exposure, improper touching. They're being termed assault by the claimants, and relative to the code of conduct that the NFL is also investigating and applying to the standard of Deshaun Watson. Mike Florio again talked about that.
And I don't want to be too graphic with this, but we've all seen the allegations. You know, he made his penis touch someone's hand, right? There was never any allegation of like grabbing someone and forcing them to do something, holding them down and assaulting them that way. It's a more subtle assault. Does that rise to the level of a violation of the personal conduct policy? That's all to be determined. So I guess what Busby's saying is, hey, we never said that there was the kind of violent exchange, that it's more about the circumstances. It was more of a subtle effort by a guy who was getting a massage, and there's a certain amount of consent that is involved by the person providing the massage. You're going to have certain touching that happens. There's going to be some inadvertent touching. It's an intimate act in and of itself. The argument is, at some point, Deshaun Watson crossed the line. And that, depending upon the evidence that was introduced on behalf of the 5 claimants, the 5 the NFL selected, is there a habit that Deshaun Watson was engaging in where he was setting up these private massages and trying, in every case, trying to make them into a sexual encounter? That's why his credibility is so important, and what he said at this hearing is so important.
Let's welcome in Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan. So, Mac, it went down to 4 that is the league is now looking at as far as claimants against Deshaun Watson. There is no black and white here. There's all shades of gray in terms of what Sue L. Robinson is looking at.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that we have to keep in mind here, Dave, is that, again, you have all these different levels to each of these stories, and it really comes down to, like what Florio was saying, you know, is there a line of conduct that you can see? Is there a pattern that is established there when it comes to Deshaun Watson? And I think that's the most fascinating part of this, is that again, there was, you know, the reports from, you know, Pro Football Talk previously about the lack of force in the past as well. But, you know, again, looking at how all of these kind of play together, how do all of these line up? And seeing how Sue Robinson will rule on this, because again, like what Josina Anderson put in the report, they're kind of urging and hoping that, you know, Sue Robinson will take her time regarding all of these. And when it comes down to Sue Robinson's ruling, you know, I do think that she'll take her time. I do think that she will have, with this being the first high-profile case that Judge Robinson has ruled on, you know, I do think that she's going to take her time and really make sure that in her report, when that does come out, that does end up, you know, being as detailed as possible to, again, show that this is a situation where there wasn't necessarily the influence from the NFL or one way or another. This was Judge Sue Robinson's case. This was her ruling, and this was her findings at the end of the day.
The other thing is it's going to be in the form of a written statement. So she's going to issue a written judgment, if you will, or arbitration as it is. It has to be able to be understood by guys like me and you and everybody that's going to talk about it, so that it can be explained to the NFL's fan base as well.
Yeah, you know, it's almost like the Office line of "explain to me like I'm 5," because again, when we have to explain this out there, you know, I have to give it out in as best of layman's terms as possible. Dave, you know it as much as I know it. You know, I'm no lawyer whatsoever. I'm sure that's why you're having Wallach on a little bit later on as well to better explain it than I can. But at the same time, you know, again, you got to have it in as basic of terms as possible, while also, you know, fully explaining why she came to this ruling. And so, you know, for us to be able to kind of explain that out, you know, at that point, I do think that, you know, she is going to have to be as comprehensive while also being as, I don't want to say general, but, you know, almost giving it as general terms as she possibly can, while being as being as detailed as she possibly can throughout all of these proceedings. Because again, like you said, there's a lot of gray area here. So, at the end of the day, there's a lot that can kind of get lost in translation. So for her, I think that she is going to take her time. She is going to make sure that, when she does put out that statement of, what her findings are and what the ruling is, I do think that she's going to take her time with that and make sure that, this can be put out there for the masses and put out there for the NFL, the NFLPA, and Watson's representatives as well, all to be commonly understood.